Hey, this is Jim Loughlin from Mo. This is my third time on my weekly mixtape, except this time I get to decide what y'all are going to hear. Hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, a podcast that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn. Tonight, we're continuing some summer concert love by welcoming back Jim Loughlin of Mo to the show. Jim, it's great to have you back, man.
Great to be back.
Well, you've been on the show twice already, so this is the third time. The first time was a catalog dive into Mo's entire career, and then we did recently an album dive into your newest album, Circle of Giants, but tonight, it's a totally different animal.
Yeah, yes, it is.
We're going to be talking about Mo, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be as direct as our prior conversations, because tonight it's all about you and your ultimate concert, meaning you have carte blanche to build your own set list using any band, any song, any era, zero limitations. But before we get to that fun, what would you say is the art to building the perfect concert set list?
Wow. I mean, it's been a bit since I've done a set list. The pressure of doing set lists sort of got to me for a while there. I need to get back into the loop, but so when I'm doing it, there's a handful of sort of rules that I try to follow. One of the biggest things I pay attention to is who's singing. So generally to start, what I like to do is start each vocalist takes a turn right kind of in the beginning. And then so I can get that out of the way so everybody, anybody who sings lead vocals in the songs gets to sing. And we'll take care of that in the first set. And then I also try to spread it out. So over a course of a show, you don't want this thing where Rob's singing 6 songs, Al's singing 1, Chuck singing 1 and Nate singing 1, or Nate, you don't want to stack singing on anybody. Because honestly, over the course of a tour, if you have too many shows where someone's singing too many songs, that's just going to go through their voice way too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Then for segues and stuff, I pay attention to key signatures and tempos. I don't want Vin having to do something crazy and just flip a switch in the middle of a segue and speed up, slow down, or have some really bizarre time signature switch. And as far as the keys of the songs, I don't want anything that's too drastic. Most of the time I'll stick with either very relative keys or something that's like the same key. Well, you'll hear us do a lot E to E to E or D to D to D, but there are things like D to G is pretty easy. E to B is very easy. E minor to E major, those that's something I try to do because that switch is it just catches an ear, that sudden turn from major to minor, either direction. And then length is what kills me. It's so hard for me to know. And especially now with Circle of Giants has some short songs on it, 5-minute songs, 4-minute songs, in stride. And then it has 12-minute songs, 13-minute songs. A lot of our bigger songs are longer. Songs like Meat and Moth and Brent Black, it could be 13 minutes, it could be 25 minutes. Whatever kind of happens is going to happen. So I try to keep as conscious of that as I possibly can, because it feels terrible to write a set or a show, and then after the first set, you've cut off 2 songs, and then you cut 3 off the end of the second set, and trying to squeeze it in. And then the flow there has to be a flow to there has to be highs and lows. There has to be sort of breathing points for both the band and the audience. And it's just everything kind of has to go smooth throughout a night. You don't want just peak, 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 peak. And, you don't want this maudlin kind of meandering thing happening. You want to kind of mix it all up and just to present what you think the audience is going to like and what it's going to give a good experience.
It'd be interesting to see a Mo show where you did set one of very chill and very mellow and maybe just kind of the more subdued stuff. And then, like you said, have set two just be the total opposite of peak, 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 peak.
We've had some second sets that have gone into that kind of, because the second set is easier because you're usually going to end the first set pretty upbeat. And then the first song of the second set, you're going to want to snatch the audience back immediately from whatever the hell it was they were doing for the last 20 to 30 minutes. So a lot of times for us, the second set will be that we'll have a strong song, and then you're kind of like, you've built all this stuff up. So you just want to keep the second set going. And when you do that, then you're like, well, what am I going to do if we get an encore? Like, what would we play? Because do you want now to step it up, or do you want to kind of bring it back down and let everybody kind of leave on a nice something, a song stuck in their head that isn't like some crazy long super jam of energy, like, songs like, that's why we play Let Her Home a lot, comes out in the second set. And then, I mean, in the encore, and then they'll, we never know how much time we're going to have also by the time we get to an encore. Sometimes it's like, yeah, sorry, good night. That's it. We can't do anything. And, sometimes they're like, we need to play 3 songs in our encore.
So considering the set lists change night to night, what is the current rotation of who's choosing the set lists on this tour right now?
So now we've gone around to, it goes alphabetically, and it's everybody except Chuck and myself. I don't think Chuck's wrote a set list since he's come back, and it's been at least a couple years since I've written a set list.
Now, before we get to your ultimate concert set list, I'd like to remind the listeners that if you enjoy what you're hearing on My Weekly Mixtape, you can help me out by either telling a friend about the show, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or by becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. There you can find ad-free episodes of the show, gain early access to upcoming episodes, chime in on future topics, become a guest curator, and so much more. Once again, that's patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. All right, Jim, let's get down to business. The real reason you're here tonight, instead of being on stage for a Mo show, you're in the audience. You're front row. Let's give you the primo seats for this. It's your set list. You got front row center. The lights just cut out. Who's the first band or artist to take the stage, and what song kicks off your ultimate concert set list?
So the first song that I picked was Bleed by Meshuggah.
Wow.
Yeah, because if you're going to really like get attention from a whole group of people, that song will absolutely do it. Just from the first 30 seconds of it, you can't. I mean, it hits with so much energy, and it's so tight, and oh my God. And, these days it's almost cliche, I guess, to pick that song from that band. Like, it's their signature song. If you go on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, you can find constant guitar playthroughs, drum playthroughs, bass playthroughs, like from every musician going, because that's like, it's definitely probably their most popular song, at least at this time. And I didn't want to be cliche, but it's their most popular song for a reason. And
it's a great tune.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And they're also killing it right now. I mean, their light show right now is amazing. Their live concerts are just top notch. They are definitely turning everything on all dials. Everything's to 11. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I'm a huge metal fan. I took the whole family to see Lamb of God at the Wellmont. I'll have to be honest, that didn't go quite as well as I planned. I think my oldest had a panic attack because she had never seen a mosh pit the way a Lamb of God mosh pit is.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, I'm a huge metal fan. A lot of the Mo fans listening, do they know that you're a metal fan, or is this coming as a surprise to them right now?
It's probably 50-50 at this point. I think when I released, I wear a lot of like Maiden shirts and Metallica shirts and stuff on stage. Anytime I do anything like this, like, it ends up either being like jazz oriented and like like classic vibraphone players and stuff like Red Norvo and Lionel Hampton, or it ends up being like this metal thing. And when I released the EP and then the first album that I did, I think that just solidified it for a lot of people that like, yeah, okay, he's the metal album for more or less. And you can see it now. It's it's definitely that's what I do.
All right. Well, they have now left the stage and another band is coming out. What is track 2?
Track 2, I picked Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath by Black Sabbath.
Nice. Iconic riff.
Oh,
Iconic.
it's yeah. Again, it like a semi kind of a signature song, but for me, it's that the album Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is the first Black Sabbath album I ever heard. Well, outside of Paranoid, I'd heard that song, and obviously I knew Iron Man and War Pigs and some random Black Sabbath songs, but I actually sat down in my friend's basement and listened to that whole record, and that particular song like almost scared me. There was I kind of after that song felt like almost like I was doing something wrong, listening to it. But I have never forgotten it. Like it hooked me. I knew, that was the song that I walked out it with stuck in my head. And it's such a great song. And it's slow, but it's heavy. Like it's so heavy, especially for the time. Like nobody was really doing anything
No.
like that. The breakdown in the middle of the song is just so awesome.
Well, I have to thank my father for introducing me to Black Sabbath because I was getting into Ozzy in the 80s. So I
Yeah.
was listening to Blizzard of Oz, No Rest for the Wicked, all the way up to No More Tears. And I'm a teenager around the time that No More Tears comes out. And I'm at the store with my father, and he said, "You know what? I'm going to throw you for a loop. I'm buying myself a CD today." And he picked up a copy of We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll. And we got in the car and we drove home, and he's like, "I want you to hear this album when we get home. So you're going to dedicate an hour with me." And he put it on, and I'm listening to it, and I'm going, "These guys are good." And he goes, "Yeah. Does that voice sound familiar?" And I'm sitting there going, "Kinda, but I can't quite put my finger on it." And he goes, "That's Ozzy." Now picture 11, 12, like my head exploded. I'm like, wait a minute, there's more Ozzy to be
See,
had
yeah,
versus Blizzard of Oz. And I became an instant Sabbath fan that day.
it was kind of the same for me. I mean, when I found Ozzy first, and when I found out that he was the singer in Black Sabbath, well, it's like, oh, well, I got to hear, this Black Sabbath bit, and that, like I said, that it turned into hearing a smattering of them, and then finally like being exposed to an entire record of it, which was just it changed a lot for me.
For all of us.
Yeah.
There might be somebody listening right now. I hope not, but there might be somebody listening right now whose minds we just blew with this fact that Ozzy sang in Black Sabbath. But you never know. This show is for all levels of music enthusiasts, whether you're general or hardcore. We're here for you. Okay, Sabbath is done. They're unplugging. Where do we go from here for track 3?
So track 3 is a bit of is definitely a switch. It's a song called Hold by KRS-One.
Whoa!
It's off I think it's a self-titled record, that the one he released in 95. And I picked it kind of because lyrically the song's absolutely brilliant. It's a slower song. It has a really, really, really simple bass line and drum track underneath it. And lyrically, it's just amazing. Anything KRS-One ever did lyrically is phenomenal to me. He's like in the top 5 rappers of all time, easy. And he's just a legend, especially if you're talking about East Coast rappers. He's been around, he started in the late 80s, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's still making records. I lost touch with him somewhere in the early 2000s. And this song, the hook is so cool. The way he keeps using the word hold and whole over and over backwards, and he switches them, and that's kind of the end of each line. And you can tell an entire story through doing this, and it's an unbelievable song. And it was hard. I wanted to pick one of his songs specifically off that record, and I was kept going back and forth between like 3 or 4 of them, and this was the one that, like, it always hits me when I listen to the album, which I listen to that album a lot.
I mean, you don't get true 90s hip hop without Boogie Down Productions.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he is one of the, I don't want to say the founding father, because obviously there's Run DMC, there's Grandmaster Flash, there's all the early classics, but to get to where you get in the 90s, I feel like Boogie Down Productions and KRS-One, and then you add in like Public Enemy, they were kind of the people that bridged it from that early sound of hip hop into what the 90s were. And I'm 47 years old, so the 90s are the golden era of hip hop for me. And I can't picture hip hop in the 90s without KRS-One.
No, he bridged. I mean, he did it again. Like I said, even at the turn of the century, he bridged the 90s into the 2000s. He was, him and Boogie Down Productions were definitely pioneers. I mean, like you said, you had Houdini, Grandmaster Flash, Run DMC in the beginning, but those guys kind of, even Sugar Hill Gang, they never changed what they did so much. You know, every Run DMC album to me is amazing, but they're all very similar. You know, they had a definite way to go. But when you talk about Public Enemy and the Bomb Squad and KRS-One and Boogie Down Productions, they constantly evolved.
Mm-hmm.
They were the rhyme styles, the rhythms that they used in their rhymes were constantly going. KRS-One was kind of at one of the first that started doing the whole triplet thing. And then this brought you Busta Rhymes and Tribe Called Quest and all these other, you know, guys that kind of took that and ran with it. And it was the same thing with Chuck D and the Bomb Squad and Public Enemy. They just continually kept evolving. And it was amazing to watch from the late 80s through the entire decade of the 90s.
Oh, yeah. When I get into a mood on a Friday night and I just want to like get my head bobbing, I have a playlist that's basically 90s boom bap hip hop. So it's like DOS Effects, it's got some Ice Cube, it's got that House of Pain, anything that has that flow and that rhythm. That's like my fun hip hop playlist. So I'm not going to lie, I'm surprised that we got hip hop in the mix here, but I absolutely love it. I love it.
I had to throw that one in. I couldn't not.
Okay, so we have Meshuggah, we have Black Sabbath, we have KRS-One. Where are we going from here?
So next is we're back to Black Sabbath, but we're changing singers.
Oh, so they just took a break off stage while KRS was doing his thing.
Yeah. And Ozzy sat down, and we're gonna bring in Ronnie James Dio, and we went to Mob Rules.
Ooh.
Off the album The Mob Rules from Black Sabbath, which is it's semi-mo related because we cover the song or have covered the song, and I've gotten to sing the song, which is like, it's awesome when you get to sing a song that you've always kind of wanted to. And singing a Dio song is not easy.
Really? I'm shocked.
At all. And he was like, if you're going to replace Ozzy with anybody in a band and you're going to go with Ronnie James Dio, you really haven't, you've maybe stepped sideways. You haven't taken a step back. Ronnie is one of my all-time favorite vocalists. His voice is so strong. So when we were learning the song, and, you know, I've heard this song a million times, and stepping up to sing it and then realizing that it is way higher than what I had imagined. Because he's doing this effortlessly. His voice is so strong and his range is so wide, but you don't notice it because there's no screams. There's no breakup in his voice at all. It's just his voice. So we actually had to lower it down a step so I could actually sing the song.
Only a step? That's still a compliment.
I can just barely get it if we drop it down a step. And yeah, it's up there. Again, one of my favorite. Heaven and Hell's and Mob Rules are just two They're up there on the best Sabbath albums. Everybody talks about the first six, but it's really, you have to add those two on it for the, the pure Sabbath collection. The other stuff, it's good, but the Ozzy and Dio Sabbath is the Black Sabbath to me.
All right, well, I'm going to get real now. You're at a concert festival. Because we're talking hypotheticals here, I could go wherever I want with this, but there's two stages. And you've got Ozzy Sabbath playing on one stage and Dio Sabbath playing on the other stage at the same time. Which stage are you at?
Oh my God. I'm running back and forth between the two. I get, but depending on the songs, I can't, yeah, that would break me. That would leave me in a quivering. I would not know what to do. I'd have to somehow know what the other stage is playing. So I know when to go back and forth.
Or you just stand in the middle and hope that you could consume all of the awesomeness, like in your right ear and your left ear.
That is actually probably what I would try to do. And just keep turning my head.
All right. So coming out of Sabbath, we're up to track 5. Where do we go from here?
So track 5, I picked Screaming for Vengeance by Judas Priest. Again, off the album Screaming for Vengeance. And again, it's a song that the first time I heard, I was just absolutely blown away. Rob Halford's voice is unbelievable. Glenn Tipton and KK Downing write some of the coolest harmonized melody lines like ever played, at least to me. And they just looked so cool, man. Like I remember seeing them when I was a kid, and for the encore, they come out and do Hellbent for Leather, and the stacks of Marshalls on the stage, and 2 of them open up, and Rob Halford comes riding out on a Harley Davidson that's just making the entire Nassau Coliseum just shake, and it was unbelievable. He's huge, and they just looked so cool on stage to me. It definitely, I've seen them maybe 4 times. And I've never walked away. 4 of the greatest shows I've ever seen. And Screaming for Vengeance was the first album that I bought that I didn't skip a song. Every song just was awesome to me. And then I went and bought all the stuff before that and just continued to collect their stuff. They just released a record last year, which is awesome.
They still sound just as great. I'll tell you right now, the way you just talked about Dio's register being so high, Rob's hasn't changed either. Even with age, he still is effortlessly hitting these notes.
Yeah.
And it's like there's got to be some sort of, I don't know what deal he signed, but his voice is still right there where it's just freaking perfect, even at his age.
So this was the first Judas Priest album I had. When I went back and bought the older stuff, the stuff that was released in the early 70s, late 60s and stuff, and there were songs like Last Rose of Summer and Dreamer, and songs where he sings and his voice is just beautiful.
Yep.
Like it's not these screams that he can do in this incredibly high register. It's this huge, deep chest voice, like this full voice. And I was like, oh, holy cow. And then they released Painkiller, and that vocal track is just ridiculous. And to see what he is capable of, like I put Rob Halford up next to Freddie Mercury. Like he's that good. He has the same range. He can sing unbelievably high. He can sing low. He can do the sweetest melodies, and he can scream like a banshee. And it's so impressive. And yeah, he's still doing it. Like if you want to see something really cool, go and search on YouTube for when he sang in court, when they were brought to court. And he was in a courtroom, and they're like, can you sing it now? And he was like, sure. And he stood up, and it's amazing.
Well, if that's on YouTube, I'll make sure to embed it on the episode page so people can go right there to check it out.
It's there. I think I have it saved.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask you a tough question here because I posted a Judas Priest song once on the socials, and I caught a little bit of flack and a little bit of love all at the same time. So I'll be curious where you stand on this. I'm a huge fan of cover songs, especially when bands reinvent a song in their own sound. Judas Priest's take on Chuck Berry's Johnny Be Good. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I like the Johnny Be Good that they did. I thought it was really cool. You know, this is from a huge fan, but they also do Green Manalishi with
that's incredible. Yeah.
And Diamonds in Rust.
Mm-hmm.
And holy crap, it's like two of the greatest covers ever recorded because they completely made the song their own. So much so that me and all my friends learned this stuff after the fact.
You didn't even know they were covers.
No idea. Until years later. You know, it was my brother Michael who was, pointed out. He's like, "Oh my God, that's a Joan Baez song." I was like, "What?" With Diamonds and Rust, and he's like, "Yeah, this is." And that's when he told me about the whole back and forth thing between her and Bob Dylan and all this crap. And I was like, "What? Wow!" And I can't remember who had mentioned Green Manalishi being a Fleetwood Mac song, and I was like, "What? This sounds nothing like." Like I can't imagine those two artists doing those two songs. And they'll always be, to me, the Judas Priest version of both those songs is, if you mention those titles, that's where I'm going. I'm not going to the original artist.
All right. So coming out of Judas Priest, where do we go from here? I'm sensing maybe like Merciful Fate or King Diamond or.
There was some King Diamond songs I actually thought about putting on this. At close, I went with 10 Speed of God's Blood and Burial by Coheed and Cambria.
Nice.
Yeah, it's off the album Good Apollo Star 4, which that's the album that got me into Coheed. I think Claudio has an amazing voice. I love high register stuff. And they write great soundscapes. They're very Pink Floyd-ish. I mean, I think it's on God Apollo Star 4. The last song is the final cut. It's called The Final Cut. And they make like several tributes to Pink Floyd in the last two songs of that record. So that is obvious. They have a song 2113. They're obviously Rush fans, and again, you can hear that in Claudio's voice. They're all top-notch musicians and he writes, so all their albums are connected. He writes graphic novels and that revolve around the music and the albums that they release, and it's this huge long story, and I'm even lost in it. Like I'm not ever really sure what's going on. But I'm a huge Coheed and Cambria fan. They were actually my most listened to artist last year in Apple Music.
Nice. I personally feel like Coheed is underrated in terms of what they bring to the musical table, because you think about bands like Dream Theater, that now that Mike's back in the band, they're selling out everywhere. Coheed does the same, but I feel like they're not talked about as much.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think they're very underrated. Their fans are rabid and fanatics, all of them, which is the thing that drives them and keeps them going. It's kind of like Rush's career. They weren't like super radio friendly. They weren't really talked about as much as they should have been, but their fans, if you're a Rush fan, man, you are a Rush fan. Like the bands can do no wrong. Basically, people will buy the record regardless, and it might, rank lower or higher in their catalog, but for the most part, anything that Coheed releases to a Coheed fan is better than anything else. Like the worst Coheed record is better than the best record of most other bands.
And I feel like that's definitely something that happens a lot in the progressive world. Like I listened to some like in the 90s, my buddy Dom and I went down the Magna Carta hole and got into bands like Enchant and other things like that. And they did a tribute to Rush that had like Sebastian Bach on it. And we were going through these Magna Carta artists, and every time you listen to it, if you found a CD and it said Magna Carta on it, you knew what you were getting. And you knew that there was some level that if it was on Magna Carta, it had to be good.
Yeah. It also had to be, slightly left or slightly right or center. Like
Yes.
it wasn't going to be a pop. You weren't going to get any kind of like radio pop kind of song. You were going to get like a pretty heavy prog song that you had to probably listen to like 4 or 5 times before you got it. And then once you get it, it's like, oh my, you can't, like you want more. Like
Of
it's so
course.
good.
All right. What do we have next?
So next is I went with The Trooper by Iron Maiden
All
off the
right.
Peace of Mind record. Again, another like signature song of the band. The song is everything that Iron Maiden is. It's Bruce Dickinson doing an amazing job singing. It's amazing guitar harmonies. Steve Harris playing that galloping, just crazy bass line that like, and Nico McBrain drumming, which he was just a phenomenal. It hurts that he retired. I'm
I
like,
was so
no,
sad
come
that
on,
news
man.
happened, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I completely get it. But yeah, like who do you get to replace him?
I'm not going to lie. I checked off that Maiden bucket list for the first time this past November at the Prudential Center.
Nice.
And my favorite song of the night, Stranger in a Strange Land. Seeing that live, that was like, oh my God, that riff is just so friggin' dirty. It's a
Yeah.
little different than the typical Maiden gallop, but there's something about it that always hypnotized me as a kid, on top of the album covers and Eddie hypnotizing me.
Oh,
Because my cousins were always listening to Maiden. And I don't know why, but seeing that song live, I was equally as elated to finally see them, but also angry at myself that it took so fucking long for it to happen.
it was my first concert was Iron Maiden and Judas Priest.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And that was I was always a Priest fan, and I hesitantly liked Iron Maiden, but I would never, back in 8th grade in high school, admit that they were as good as Judas Priest. Like I had a friend of mine who was like a diehard Maiden fan, and we'd get in fights all the time. And despite how much I liked them, I would not admit the fact that, yeah, that they're as good as Judas Priest, but they're not really. Like,
all right. I have to bring up something though. Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, your second song of the night. In the 90s, there was the Nativity in Black compilation, and Bruce Dickinson did a cover with Godspeed. Have you ever heard that version? And if so, what do you think of it?
Yes, I have, and it's awesome. There's also Sepultura does Planet Caravan on that record, which is amazing.
Biohazard's After Forever is insane.
And that's After Forever is actually one of my favorite Sabbath songs as well. It's funny, when I was doing this, I didn't know if I should go with like all B-side stuff and like deep cut stuff, or if I should go, with like sort of the signature songs of these bands. And I thought, like, if I did all the deep cut stuff, then this would be a concert that I would be the only person who enjoyed. And if I wanted to, like, for everybody to have a great time and be introduced to these bands, like, these are the songs that, like, if you ask me, oh man, I'd like to hear something by whatever, these are probably the songs that I would play you. There's probably a couple of exceptions in here, but mostly like this is what I would play and be like, this is the band. There's different versions of this, but this is them. This is their essence in one of their songs. If you want to really understand them, listen to this song.
Yeah, for me, when it comes to Maiden, I completely understand where the Trooper fits that bill. The only disappointment I had with the last tour was that Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner from Power Slave was not in the set, but it is in this year's set. So I'm hoping they get back to the US because I got to check that one off. That to me is an all-time Maiden classic. It's got the gallop. It's ridiculously long, but doesn't feel long at all. Bruce's vocals on it are perfect. Oh,
it's another one of those things where, a lot of the lyrics that Steve Harris wrote are based on actual books, events, like stuff like that. And it's weird, like, so that I was like, well, okay, obviously I have to go read this poem then because Steve Harris liked it, so I got to go check it out. The trooper made me go and learn about the charge of the Light Brigade, which
Mhm.
is like one of the most interesting war stories you'll ever hear and terrific and all this stuff. And, just when I found out that the actual call to charge in that battle was a mistake that everybody just picked up on and they went and were decimated is like it's just like holy cow. So, Maiden is was somewhat of a history teacher for me as well as a lit teacher. You got me researching stuff. So
Hey, it makes it more fun too. Let's be
exactly.
honest. Let's be
Yeah, oh
honest.
yeah.
All right. So we got Maiden's the Trooper. Where do we go from here?
So from here we'll slow it down a little bit and I got Xanadu by Rush.
I assume they had to be in here at some point.
Oh yeah, I had to. And again, like this is one of those things where it's a song that really shows what these guys can do musically.
Yeah.
The lyrics are amazing. This is another one of those songs that the first time I heard it, I was just encapsulated the whole or enraptured the whole entire time with it. And there's the little glockenspiel parts. This is a song where live they do the double neck thing and Geddy's playing bass lines with his foot, rhythm guitar while Alex does something. Like all this stuff is happening. You hear the record and you know that this is three guys. And you wonder, can these three guys actually do this live? Then you go see them do it live and it's just jaw-dropping because it's exactly what you heard on the record. It's every note is in there. Everything they played. They didn't, they don't drop tracks and stuff when they go to perform it live. They can cover everything that was recorded. And it's for a song like that, that's this anthemic thing. It's long, it's got all these different parts. It's very pretty. It's a beautiful song. And just to see three people do it live, it's just like, how is no way. it's, it's crazy.
So I have to ask, is A Farewell to Kings your favorite Rush album?
Wow. I don't know that I have a favorite Rush album. It's kind of based on mood, like really with them. I'm so familiar with everything up probably until like Vapor Trails. Like I know all those the albums before that, back and forth. And at this point I probably couldn't tell you what songs, depending on the albums, are on which albums. But they cover so much ground throughout their career. It really kind of just depends on what I feel like listening to when I want to hear a Rush record. I don't grab for my favorite Rush album. That's a tough choice.
Well, I'll be honest. Don't sleep on Snakes and Arrows and Clockwork Angels. They're both
Yeah.
amazing. Even though they're post Vapor Trails, if you haven't gone down that rabbit hole, there's some classic Rush on both of those albums.
It's funny. I mean, I have everything that they have recorded. I just haven't because the recent stuff is that much more recent. I don't have the history that I have
Of course.
with it as much as their earlier catalog, but there's really not a song I don't like. I mean, I like Hold Your Fire and Power Wind, like all those, even the synthy records, like
Yep.
I love them. If I'm in the mood for those always hit.
And as when I was at my youngest, my cousin introduced me to Rush through moving pictures. So that's always going to be the Rush album for me because hearing that opening to Tom Sawyer as a kid, that's like, what is happening right now? And as I got older, La Villa became my favorite Rush tune of all time because there's just no denying that they take this instrumental. And I think that's why I think La Villa is a part of why I love jam band music so much because of what they did in that. It told the story without lyrics, and that's hard to do.
It goes so many different places and it's smooth. Again, there's no jarring changes. There's no, like, it goes from A to Z and flows through each part. It's just a beautiful thing.
You close your eyes and it paints a picture as you're hearing the sounds. And that's something that when somebody uses lyrics to do that, it's one thing because you're picturing what they're saying. But when the music is doing that for you, it's a totally different experience.
Yes. Yeah. It definitely takes you places without telling you where you're going, like verbally telling you. You mentioned the intro to Tom Sawyer, and there's an episode of the Goldbergs on the show. The Goldbergs is one of the characters is a huge Rush fan. He wears a Rush shirt every time he's on the screen, and the daughter in the family is like a musician. There's a scene where he plays her Rush for the first time, and it's the opening note for Tom Sawyer, and her eyes just lock in. And then she goes and plays it for her friends, and they have the same reaction. It's like, oh my God. And how it just bleeds, that song just like turns them all into these huge Rush fans. It's hilarious. The
I've never
episode.
seen that show. I have to find it now because
yeah.
that is exactly how I experienced it as a kid.
That's when you said that, I was like, oh my God, it's just like, it's really funny episode.
All right. You have to follow up Rush and Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
This is not an easy task. I'm very curious to see where you go from here.
So from here, I went with Primus, who I've seen open up for Rush, but not Iron Maiden. And it's a song, Ballad of Bodacious.
Nice.
It's a song I picked for the time capsule that you had.
Yes, the ultimate mixtape.
Yes. And this is, I mean, I guess this is kind of a deep cut as far as Primus is concerned, because it's off the album Anti-Pop, which I don't know why. I mean, I guess because Fred Durst had something to do with a couple songs, and people want to call it a new metal record, which I don't see it. It's a Primus record, and they're just in a category of their own. Because there's no, even the songs off of Anti-Pop, there's not a new metal band that you can say, oh yeah, it sort of sounds, no, it doesn't. It sounds like Primus.
Exactly.
And this song just has one of the coolest bass lines and drum lines in it. The guitar is perfect. And it's a song about a rodeo bull, and it's music that should be in a song about a rodeo bull. And it's just, it thumps, man. It's a great song. It's a great story. If you've never heard of Bodacious the Rodeo Bull, Google it, read his Wikipedia page, because it's super interesting. And Les tells the story of this bull and one particular rider who rode him at 2 different occasions. I almost killed him the second time. And it's just a great, great song. And it's also, I named my last dog after the song because he was just, when I first got him, he was just very stubborn, very ornery, and wouldn't want to be controlled. It took so long to get him to be a good dog. So that the name just came out. So he was named Bodacious.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And it's one of my favorite Primus songs.
I'll be the first to say that I love Anti-Pop. I don't care anything about the whole new metal stigma. And let's be honest, last time I checked, Limp Bizkit's opening for Metallica all over the world, and they're selling out arenas again. Yeah. Limp Bizkit is back, and I never got the hate for it. I feel like there's a place for music for any type of style. And I personally enjoy Limp Bizkit. I think Wes Borland is a ridiculous guitarist. I think John Otto's an incredible drummer. I think the band is very talented. Are the lyrics silly and sometimes corny? Yes, and that's kind of the beauty of it. Like, why does everything have to be so artistic? If the Break Stuff is a fantastic workout song, it makes me want to get up and do shit. And that's sometimes we need that motivation at this age, you know?
It's one of those things where people hate on a band. Korn sort of, I mean, a lot of the new metal bands get this, and people hate on them. And I don't know who was really doing the gatekeeping at this point in time. Like, hardcore Metallica fans and the thrash guys, and, and they didn't want to call this metal in some way, so they spelt new all weird and put it in front of it. But the reality is when you put a lot of these songs on, people like it. Like, people go crazy for it. They proved it at Woodstock. I mean, these 2 bands started riots. It's the same, like Freak on a Leash. You can make fun of Jonathan Davis's voice as much as you want, but when he sings that song, it's one of the coolest things. And, it was like no one was doing that. No one was singing like that. No one was using their voice as that kind of weird ass instrument. So yeah, I completely bought the album and totally got in. There's stuff about it I don't like, but there's a lot of stuff that I do. I could do without Feely's bass tone. Like it's too but overall, man, it's good music. I don't really see that bit much of a problem with it.
Now, I told you earlier that my oldest was not a Lamb of God fan, but I'm taking her to Korn and System of a Down at her request. She loves both of those bands. So I wasn't far off with the Lamb of God, but I think I needed to come a step or two down, just a little bit. Like maybe I went one too many flights of stairs for the first metal concert. So she's coming around.
See, and that's the thing. System of a Down is the same. They would have gotten categorized. They're playing with Korn with those bands as well, and they're amazing. You can't. How can you not like them? I don't. Sometimes I'm like, but all right, whatever.
Okay. All right. So coming out of Primus, we've only got a couple songs left here, so we're nearing kind of the crescendo of the night. Where do we go from Primus?
So from Primus, I went with a song by Queensryche off of Operation Mindcrime called "Spreading the Disease."
Nice.
And again, I'm looking at this. I'm like, wow, I picked a lot of these because of the vocalists. Like this, I think when listening to metal and they've had so many great singers, throughout at least my history with heavy metal, and I think the history of heavy metal, the vocalist is a really important part. And Jeff Tate is up there, man. Again, easily in the top 5, top 3 greatest singers of all time. Mindcrime is, to me, it's one of the best albums ever recorded. It sounds amazing. You listen to it now, it might sound a little bit dated and overprocessed and stuff, but when it was released, like, holy cow. To me, it had the same amount of impact that The Wall had when The Wall was released. And it's
fair.
As far as a concept album, in my opinion, it holds up against The Wall, The Wall is one of my favorite all-time records, and Mindcrime is again probably in my top 10 favorite albums ever recorded. The story is amazing throughout the album. It's just as, to me, message-wise and stuff, it could be put to today's society as much as it, was to what was going on back then. The lyrics are great. To look at it as a whole, it's unbelievable, and it makes a tremendous statement, like I said, that still stands up today. And Spreading the Disease is just a great song.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, his voice is amazing in that song. Like the chorus is unbelievable, and the whole breakdown, and they do the weird thing where he's speaking and all the different sounds. That just the production of it is top notch. Another record that just sort of changed my perspective on music and what is possible, really.
So I guess my follow-up to that is I discovered Queensryche on the Mindcrime album, and then came Empire, and then I went back to Rage for Order and The Warning. What were your thoughts on Empire after Mindcrime? Because I know there's a lot of talk about like, oh, well, it's, they sold out on Empire. And I don't necessarily feel like that's the case. I feel like they just went away from a concept record. And that was kind of the big difference. Because musically, I feel like there are some themes that sway between the two albums.
Yeah, well, the song, the title track off of Empire is definitely very similar to the statements that they were making in Mindcrime.
Exactly.
And that song just is awesome. I'll be honest, and I think it's because Silent Lucidity, I think that song is what turned a lot of people off. And it turned me off when the album was first released. I was like, I'm not even going to get it. And probably since sometime in the early 2000s, I really started listening to the record. And sometime in the last 10 years, I really got into that. And the next album, which has I Am I on it, and just realizing how good those albums are, and how Queensryche they are. And it's not, if you pull Mindcrime out of their catalog and go from Warning to Rage for Order and skip Mindcrime and then go to Empire, it's a seamless progression. It makes complete sense. So obviously they were going for a specific thing when they did Mindcrime and they really dug into it and everything. And then that's sort of going to pull you out. And the album just stands out because of all the work they did to make this concept record. So yeah, the next thing is going to sort of seem left-footed, but it's not. Like if you look at the whole entire sweep of their career, all of it makes sense.
And I will say I did find it odd when one of those monster ballad compilations came out and they put Silent Lucidity on a power ballads mix. I was like, do they not understand who Queensryche is? Like, Silent Lucidity, yes, it's a slow, hard rock song for the time.
Right.
But I mean, you play Silent Lucidity next to Miles Away from Winger or Love of a Lifetime by Firehouse. Those are power ballads.
Yeah.
Silent Lucidity is still a slower progressive rock song.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to everything that's going on, and then that's what struck me years later, again, was the production of these songs. Like when you listen to how thick everything sounds in it and how full everything, and it's just a great recording. And I love hearing the song. Like I never wanted to, and like I said, it's a great, great song. And I'll put that record on, I don't know, probably a week ago. I just listened to it. So.
All right, so now we're moving on to track 11. We're really getting towards the end here. How are we coming out of Queensryche?
So this is weird, but this is like what I was talking about before, where sometimes you just need a breather. So I picked a Pogue song.
Oh.
Because they're one of my favorite all-time bands. And the Rum, Sodomy, and the Lash was an album. I probably listened to the record when I first got it for a month, 2 months straight. Like it was all I listened to. Even picking up other Pogues records and stuff, I always went back to Rum, Sodomy, and the Lash. It's just amazing from beginning to end. Every song is gold on that record. So I picked the song A Pair of Brown Eyes, which was, It's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful story. It's sad. That band extracts so much emotion out of me, it's particularly that record. And like Shane MacGowan was a tragic figure.
Yeah.
His life was messed up and everything, but man, he wrote some of the greatest lyrics. His voice was so his. It was clearly him singing. He wasn't trying to do anything at all. He left the accent in, he left the slurring in, he left whatever it was, and he just belted these songs out. And they're so cathartic. Like listening to them, you go through everything that he's saying. And that song again, it's a great sad story. And if we're looking at a set like this to have something to just mellow out, and it's really like the chorus, everybody could sing if they know the song. It's a big sing-along chorus and stuff, and it's a great song. And it's another song that just embodies what the Pogues are, who Shane was, and it's one of my all-time favorites there.
This is something that if Mo were to do like an acoustic style set, I could actually hear this going over really well with songs like Raise a Glass. Thematically and musically, I feel like there's a little bit of a connection here.
I would love to play this song with Mo in an acoustic setting. It would be awesome. Especially now Nate can play flute on it and it would just sound very authentic. And I would love to do it.
All right. Well, we are at track 12. So out of the Pogues,
we're going to step it up many notches. And we're going to go to Metallica's Ride the Lightning album and Trapped Under Ice.
Wow.
This is one of the B-side, the sort of deeper cut songs I think that I picked, because off of that album, everybody talks about By Fire with Fire, obviously the title track, Fade to Black at the end of the second side. These big songs, but Trapped Under Ice was a B-side song. And man, the first time I heard it, it just blew me away. Like, it is fast and heavy And it's like just the concept of the song. I mean, my God. And he describes it being trapped under ice. Like that is, it's a definitely a fear of mine. I would, ever since I saw The Omen when I was a little kid, holy cow, that just seems like the most frightening thing. And they just embodied it in a song. And it always that it's the song off that record that hits me the hardest. Yeah, I won't even say it's the best song off the record, but man, leaving an impression, that song does it.
Now, it's according to setlist.fm. This has only been played 29 times. I'd have to go on Metallica's site to really like dig. I do a lot of research for the show, but not that much. Is this a wish list song for you, or were you ever at one of those 29 magical shows where it was played?
I was not. It is a wish list song for me. They played, I saw them at Darien Lake with Danzig and the Suicidal Tendencies. And they used to do a thing called the pile of shit was, and they would, it was a medley of all the songs that from previous albums that they don't really play anymore and stuff. And that's the closest I saw to them doing it, was them playing the riff and stuff and the groove through this medley. But I've never seen the entire song.
Nor have I. And I think I could speak for both of us that unless you were at that Orion festival that they did back in New Jersey in the 2000s, we haven't seen Escape either, because that was the only time the song was ever played.
No, yeah, there's a lot of their songs that I've never seen. I have seen at that same show though, they did play Dyer's Eve for maybe the second time they ever played it live.
I would love for them
awesome.
to do Justice in its entirety. I love Justice.
Yeah.
Like, Justice is my favorite Metallica album, and I catch a lot of flack from people, especially because I love Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, Kill 'Em All, but Justice for me, even though the bass and there's all that controversy, there's something about that album that just hits the progressiveness of it. There was a story behind it. And
yeah,
it was the first physical Metallica album I ever bought. I went to the Sam Goody at the Garden State Plaza in New Jersey. I went to buy the cassette, and this was the best mistake that ever happened to my life. I went to buy the cassette, and they were sold out. And the woman said, "We only have it on vinyl." And I was like, "Oh, man." And my mom said, "Look, it's your birthday. You could get the vinyl, and I'll buy you a blank cassette so you could record it on the cassette." And I was like, fine, because cassettes were all the rage in the late 80s.
Yep.
In hindsight, I still have that vinyl framed in my basement, and it was the best quote-unquote mistake that ever happened to me, because I still have it on the original vinyl.
That's awesome. That is a great mistake.
Yeah. So at this point, it is track 12, and it would be the close of the night. So I'll ask, is there an encore that you would choose for your ultimate concert?
Yeah, I couldn't do 12 songs when you sent the thing out. So, because I didn't know where to put this song, but I couldn't leave it out. Actually, I knew it was going to be the last song, but by the time I got through 12, I was like, oh man. So I picked Pink Floyd's The Trial off The Wall.
Wow.
And like I said, The Wall is one of my all-time favorite albums. I spent a long time listening to that record every day, over and over and over. That was my first year in college, is kind of what I spent doing, which is kind of why I dropped out. But that's a whole other story. But this song, it caps off the record, and it kind of, first of all, it goes through everything that the rest of the record explained about this guy's life, and who we assume was Syd Barrett, from when he was a kid all the way through all his relationships with his mom, his teachers, the women in his life and everything. And this, so the trial lets all of them speak against him in what is a trial at the end of this record. And if you listen to this song in headphones, holy cow. I mean, there's timpani, there's an orchestra, there's all these different voices. There's the judge, like I said, his mom, his ex-wife, wife, his teacher, the usher for the court, and him, and plus like a group of background singers in it. and just all this stuff going on. And it is unbelievable. Like, again, it's one of those songs that the first time I heard it, I was just thinking, I didn't know you could do this. Like, not only is it possible to do something like this, but you're allowed to. And you're allowed to put it on a record. And you're allowed to have a song like this on one of the greatest selling records. Like, people love that album from beginning to end. And it's not, just about Another Brick in the Wall and Comfortably Numb. Like, this song is just caps this whole amazing journey off, and it's perfect. Like, by the time you're done hearing this, you're just worn out trying to listen to everything that's happening and really understanding the rest of the whole entire story and what happened. And yeah, that's it. Like, you can't do anything more. This song just ends an album perfectly. If they played it in a show, at this being the last song, like, it would probably take me like 20 minutes to get up and leave because just trying to digest all of it. Yeah, so I had to have it on this list, and obviously it had to be last.
Well, I mentioned with the Pogues that I can hear Mo doing them acoustically. I could hear Mo doing the Trial, segueing in and out of some Mo songs. I'm not gonna lie, it could work.
Hey, it's one of those things that I think about when we did the Peach Fest Pink Floyd tribute. We did a lot of songs off the wall, and I got to sing most of them because there's a lot of screamy stuff, and I always do the screamy stuff. And it's just that every time I hear this song, it's one of those things where I don't know if I'd want to hear it without the timpanis, if I would want to hear it without the string section. Like, there's a lot of things about Pink Floyd, and I always used to say, like, if you can't play a Pink Floyd song perfectly, don't bother playing it. I don't necessarily believe that anymore, but certain songs, like, if you're not going to do this song like a lot of justice, don't do this song. Because it's like, if you're not going to play those guitar solo in Hotel California exactly how they play it, you're going to disappoint a lot of people. You've heard this stuff so many times, and there's certain songs throughout rock and roll that it's so ingrained in you. If a band covers it and it's not either something completely different and awesome, it's got to be like almost spot on, or else people are gonna be like, they tried. This is one of those songs that I wouldn't wanna. They tried. Like, I wouldn't. It would be awesome to have like an orchestra and do this song with an orchestra behind us, and that would be unbelievable.
Make it happen. I could see a Mo orchestra tour.
That would be I would love that. Holy cow.
Well, there you have it, folks. Jim Loughlin's ultimate concert set list, which kicked off with Meshuggah's Bleed, Black Sabbath's Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, KRS-One's Hold, Black Sabbath's The Mob Rules, Judas Priest Screaming for Vengeance, Coheed and Cambria's 10 Speed of God's Blood and Burial, Iron Maiden's The Trooper, Rush's Xanadu, Primus's Ballad of Bodacious, Queensryche's Spreading the Disease, The Pogues' A Pair of Brown Eyes, Metallica's Trapped Under Ice, and Pink Floyd's The Trial. Remember, you can hear a playlist featuring all of these songs over on the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com. Now, Jim, I know you mentioned you've messed around with the Mob Rules in most sets. You didn't do The Trial, but if you had to pick one of these songs to introduce into Mo's set list this summer, which do you think would be the most realistic choice that the band could do justice to?
Woo. Wow. Probably, well, we've done The Trooper once. So, and this was one of the songs, and I sang the song, and we did a pretty convincing job of it. It's a hard song to sing, but I'd probably say that one. If not a Pair of Brown Eyes, I would say The Trooper's probably, if we got time to rework it and do it again, we can definitely do that one.
All right.
We've done Sabbath Bloody Sabbath as well in the Black Sabbath sort of tribute-y Halloween show.
Oh, you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
That was in Philly, correct?
Yes.
I was not at that one, unfortunately.
That it was fun. That was the
I
first time we did Mob Rules as well, and I sang both of those songs. And yeah, that middle part of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is really tough, man. Like I couldn't talk much the next day after that show.
Makes sense. That's fair. Very fair. So, Jim, if you were given full reins like you were tonight to pick your ultimate concert set list, if you were given full reins for your own personal opinion of a 5-song Mo set, so this means you're not thinking fans. This is just your personal 5-song Mo set, because let's be honest, a 5-song Mo set could be easily a full hour-long set.
Yes,
Which 5 songs would you pick?
Let's see. Same Old Story. Annihilation. Rain Shine. I have to throw Meat in there as one of the classics, but I love playing that song. And what would the 5th song be? Overlude.
Oh,
That's a fun song.
very cool. Now, Circle of Giants is still in its infancy, came out this year, and I'll remind all the My Weekly Mixtape listeners that there's a full album dive episode of the record over at myweeklymixtape.com. And during that episode, you dropped some knowledge about a studio recording of Bear Song that didn't make the final cut. Any updates on when fans will get a chance to hear that?
We still haven't decided what we're going to do with it yet. Possibly one of the best options that we can do is find another song that we haven't released and maybe a 12-inch, A and B side with Bear Song on one side and something else on the other.
George, excuse me. Sorry.
That's one of the songs that yeah, we tried, and it just, at the time when we tried to record it, it didn't hit right and it didn't fit with the rest of the record. So that's something we should probably look into. That would be a great song for it. There's a handful of other older ones, but yeah, we don't have a definitive plan for it yet. Right now it's sitting in the locker ready to go, but we're not sure when to release it upon the people.
Well, I'll have to ask the next time you're on the show, Jim. This has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for joining me, and can't wait to talk to you the next time.
Oh, absolutely, Brian. Absolutely. I always enjoy doing it.
And remember, you can find My Weekly Mixtape on almost all the social media haunts at My Weekly Mixtape. You can also head to myweeklymixtape.com to check out the full catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes, including the other 2 episodes with Jim. Finally, if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or by becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. There you can find ad-free episodes of the show, gain early access to future episodes, chime in on upcoming topics, become a guest curator, and so much more. Once again, patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. That's all for this week. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, enjoy the tunes.